It's Monday, April 25th, and we got some big news this past weekend. The Yuga Labs are going to be doing the Otherside drop this coming Saturday, and a lot of news surrounding things like Moonbirds, Monolith, and the Beanz reveal. For more, we're going to be talking, me and Tyler, today. Tyler, we pushed this back a little bit. There was a couple different just important spaces going on. Late last night, it sort of came out with Ryan Carson, who now we found out he's going to be leaving the Moonbirds team. He is going to be running his own NFT fund. So there has been some price action, but it hasn't really cratered Moonbirds in general. Kevin Rose just had a spaces to talk about it and basically tell the community like his thoughts and how they're going to move forward. So what's your initial thoughts on this sort of Ryan Carson situation?
It's just been such an action-packed week for Moonbirds, for everything related to Kevin Rose and Carson. And I mean, there's been some red flags from Ryan Carson's Twitter account for anyone who's been following over the past few days and weeks. And in some of my personal chats with other Moonbirds collectors, we've been saying Carson's the biggest risk to Moonbirds right now.
Yeah.
And he just kind of kept pushing the envelope, and then it seems he basically went rogue, is what we're learning here. And last night, made this announcement from his Twitter, and we can show it here, that he was launching his fund, 121G, where he's essentially asking for 25 ETH per quarter, 100 ETH commitments from accredited investors to essentially let him buy NFTs for them. So this announcement, as folks can imagine, got flooded about as hard as possible. There were folks who put their Moonbirds on the floor last night after this news came out. And to Kevin Rose's credit, I mean, I think he addressed it as swiftly as possible. He made an announcement in the Discord last night that they're going to have a spaces this morning and talk about it, along with this Ohanian announcement. And what we learned is Carson's essentially fired. He tweeted about this morning. We're showing the thread here. He talks about how he's walking away. Kevin Rose on the spaces said that there's no ill will, that there's that everything's fine. But this is a quick transition. Carson's access gets cut off on Wednesday, so this is a 2-day transition, and then he's essentially going to be relegated to just a proof owner and a Moonbirds owner. So it was a wild weekend of news. I like the way Kevin Rose handled it. I mean, another important indicator, maybe bullish indicator, there was 3,600 people on that spaces just now at 1 p.m. on a work day on a Monday. So clearly a lot of eyes are on this.
Yeah, it's definitely become the top story, I guess, of the day. And as you mentioned, that number is over half of the number of current holders of Moonbirds. Not saying that every one of those people were holders or anything, but it is good to see that many people are tuned in and want to hear about it, because it can affect the market. Moonbirds have been basically the big piece of the market the last couple of weeks now, and movers of the market, and it's still at that 34th floor. Didn't crash under 30 like initially people, like you said, were trying to get out right when they heard that news. But I think Kevin Rose has handled it pretty well. Now you're seeing a bunch of FUD out there just in general on Ryan Carson starting this fund. I mean, you're required to commit 100 ETH to it. And the big FUD around it is, why are we giving ETH to this guy who now has, left the arguably most successful in the short term project out there? Like, why is he going to go invest in other stuff? I've seen posts on Twitter about he hasn't necessarily been a very successful trader. and that's been a big FUD as well. He's sold some CryptoPunks at losses that people are posting about. Obviously, he's bought into Moonbirds that are up, but there's also the FUD that he knew a lot about the traits and what to go for. So, what's your thoughts on this fund now? And he originally said in that post he had 80 plus people that were interested in it. Do you think that he's just blowing smoke, or do you think there's going to actually be a lot of demand for this?
I mean, interested is certainly a word that could be interpreted a few different ways.
Um,
I think he's going to have to remove this number of spots available from his website, especially if that number doesn't start going down. I think a lot of people are questioning, is Carson going to be able to fill all these spots? He's doing a 2 and 20. So, he's going to take 20% along with a 2% fee, which is kind of from traditional, fund investing and whatnot. To me, it feels egregious in the NFT spaces because of the returns that we see. To use that model seems just crazy to me. Certainly, no one who's NFT native is going to go into this fund, right? Folks are going to invest on their own, or perhaps collectively with their friends or DAOs or whatnot. But I don't know how big his network is. Is he going to be able to get investors who aren't familiar with the Web3 or NFT space to join his fund? Maybe. So I don't know if I'm betting against it filling at this point. But certainly his reputation on NFT Twitter is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be hard for him to recover from that.
Yeah, and I think there was already some FUD towards him being the COO and past ventures that he's been a part of as well. So, like you said, it's probably at a low right now, but I think there are already people that were already against him and didn't want him being the head of Moonbird. So I think people that, as you said earlier, like what's going to hold Moonbirds back, a lot of people's answer to that had been Ryan Carson and things that he's been tweeting. He had been tweeting about the floor price a lot. He had been tweeting about just in general things that you don't necessarily want the leader of your project to be tweeting about. So I think there are some people that this is a sigh of relief that he's going to be gone, and then other people that look at this and how can they recover from it. So then the second part of the spaces that there was an announcement on was this Alex Ohanian. I believe am I saying that correctly? The former co-founder of Reddit, who's pretty big into Moonbirds as well. And he announced that he's going to be investing $10 million into Moonbirds. So what's your thoughts on this? Because I know going into this spaces, we weren't really sure what Alexis's investment or just piece into Moonbirds was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one. And we just got the announcement here from the Moonbirds Twitter just 3 minutes ago. We're thrilled to announce $10 million funding led by Ohanian and his 776 fund, with True Ventures, which is Kevin Rose's venture investing fund, participating as well. And they're thrilled to build the future of Web3 together with the community mind of Alexis. So those who are familiar with Alexis Ohanian, founder of Reddit, one of the first true online community spaces. And the reactions that I saw, like in the discussions that I'm having, is Ohanian is as heavy of a hitter as there is out there. So this shows Kevin Rose's network, and his ability to connect. One immediate question is, what do they need the money for, right? These guys, they've done 110,000 ETH in the last 9 days on OpenSea, which is 5,500 ETH, like 16 million or so, and that's on top of the primary sales. But the counter to that is, I think it's always good to have additional cash flow in, as well as someone that has the background expertise as Alexis does. So I think it's a huge win. I think it's going to be received very well from the community. And we saw a little bit of the Moonbird sales bot picked up a little bit when Alexis started talking.
Yeah, I think people were excited. A lot of people seemed like they were expecting it to be him. The surprise was connected to. there were thoughts on, was he going to replace Ryan or not? So do you think they should be looking to replace Ryan? And is that something near term or just long term?
Yeah, so another big takeaway from the spaces was essentially that Kevin Rose, when he started Proof, he thought it was going to be essentially a side gig. And he's come out and said he thought he was going to spend about 30% of his time on Proof and the rest of his 70% with his fund, True Ventures. And then he brought in Carson to be the COO and handle a lot of the day-to-day over the past few weeks and months. And then essentially there's been a turning point in the last few weeks as he's seen how big and how meteoric Moonbirds has been, that he has made the decision to essentially step down from True Ventures and run Proof and Moonbirds full time. So I think that's a huge decision. That shows his commitment, because there's definitely a difference to running an NFT as a side project. And we've seen plenty of founders and anons who do it that way, and how they can turn into slow rugs, versus this making it his full-time commitment. So I think that decision will be received very well. He did state that he will plan to hire for the role, I believe, but that they're going to take their time with it, and that he's essentially going to be stepping into the role here in the near term. So I love that decision, and certainly I think he's going to have a deep pool of applicants. If and when that time comes, he starts to look to hire for that.
Yeah. Cool. And so, we've spent a decent amount of time on this situation, and I think we have a couple other things that we're going to recap from over the weekend. I'll start with the monolith, actually, from Artifact. So they finally came out with their what's in the box, and it was these crypto kicks from Nike, and then every person who had a monolith was able to open the box, get one of the kicks, and also a skin vial that was one of 8 different skins that you could then put with the sneaker. So what was your thoughts on this? Because I know originally the market was like, shoes, what's this? It dumped down to in the 4s and then shot right back up to in the 10s for a monolith. So what was your take on this Artifact drop?
Yeah, and there's so much to unpack from this. So starting with the price action, and then we'll get to more of the meat of this. I thought it was so interesting. So we got the news late Friday afternoon that there was a shoe in the box, and Monolith was trading right around 8 ETH or so pre-reveal. And then it's one of those situations where the floor just instantly fell out. The undercutters in this current market are just so aggressive. And, we used to undercut by like 0.01. Now it's 0.5 to 1 ETH. So the floor got all the way down to like 4.5. And then essentially paper hands, we'll call them, were shaken out. People started to realize the potential for this huge product. And then it swung the other way. Pranksy did a sweep at 10. The floor got all the way up to 12. It's been retracing a little bit. I think it sits around 10 ETH or so right now. So that's the price action. We're showing here the Artifact homepage. So this is what came out of the Monolith box. So you got one pair of the digital shoes, the Nike Dunk Genesis Crypto Kicks. You got one skin vial, which aligns to the DNA from the Clone X. And I want to say, as well as those rarities.
To your Clone X? Or no, it's just there's 8 that are connected as already Clone X traits. Right?
It's connected to the DNA. So you got the humans, the robots, the aliens, the demons.
But you don't have to own a Clone X.
Correct. Yeah, you do not have to own a Clone X. I don't know that there's really any tie-in right now to a Clone X that you own. And then I think even the best part is you got your Monolith back. You got Monolith 2, which is now the image is updated. It's got the gold. So I think I talked about this on the show. I definitely talked about it on a show. My prediction for the Monolith was going to be a digital wearables generator. And I think that prediction came through. This is essentially what this is. So the very first digital wearable we got was the Nike Crypto Kicks. And then we got the generator back. So I'm expecting we'll get another digital wearable in the next reveal. That's my current prediction. And then we'll get Monolith 3. And I think we're going to continue to be able to use this as a digital wearable generator. But I don't think enough people are talking about how important the Nike Dunk Genesis crypto kicks are as an NFT, as a product ahead of a more digital future. This is the first generation digital shoe from the biggest shoe company in the world. Right now it's digital. We've already seen glimpses of how they plan to integrate this with physicals. So imagine a physical shoe where the Nike Swoop can be controlled by NFTs, or essentially you've got skins in your wallet that can interact with your physical shoes.
Like walking around and it's changing as you're walking.
Exactly. Or, tonight you want to change to this skin. It matches your outfit, and then the next day it changes with that. So there's the physical and like the augmented reality use case of this, but then also just the pure, digital world use case and metaverse use case for these. And, the concept that you only have to own one pair of shoes for the rest of your life. They're never going to get dirty. They're never going to get worn out. And then you can use these skin vials in an ongoing fashion to continue to decorate them, to change them. And this is this is the first Genesis. Like there's 20,000 of these. That's it. There's only ever going to be 20,000 Gen 1 Nike Dunk Genesis crypto kicks. I think it's an incredibly important NFT. It's Nike's first true NFT output. And I'm incredibly bullish on these long term. So I'll be excited to see, what Artifact and Nike does with these.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, like, we haven't really seen anything like this before. One thing that I was looking at with this is it seems like the shoe is going to be trading at a higher price than the vial, but I'm looking at it as the vial still has that rare lotto to it because you can have one of 8, whereas the shoes are all the same, correct? So why do you think the shoe right now is going to be trading higher?
So there is no rare lotto on the skin vial, as I understand.
You already know it?
When you mint the monolith, you reveal the vial at that point. And I think that may have changed from how the mint went in the first few hours. And there was a handful of difficulties. I think the Artifact team was telling people not to buy shoes that had the skins applied on secondary because there was a way for the owner to pull the vial back. So certainly be careful about that. Go look through Artifact's Twitter and Discord before you make a big purchase. Certainly make sure you want to understand all that. But in general, that concept makes sense to me because this is the first set of vials. I think the vials are also super important, but we're going to get a lot more vials. Those are essentially just the skins, but there's only going to be these 20K shoes. So I expect the shoes to carry a premium and to continue to carry that.
Yeah, I would expect them to. They're going to have different partnerships down the road, and I think they alluded to it. But say like they'll come out with a Christmas vial or something like that. Like they're going to come out with more vials over time. This is just that sort of Genesis vial in a sense. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the difference between Monolith 1 and Monolith 2, because I think a lot of people went in, opened the box. Do you think there's any reason some people might want to just hold the box long term as this sort of first of Genesis idea? The Monolith 2 is trading at about half the price, I believe. It's around 4.5 versus 9.10 for Monolith 1. So do you think that it's going to continue that way? Because we saw that with the CloneX vials, where CloneX vials have stayed above the rest of the floor as far as once you actually use the vial. So do you expect people to want to be holding on to these? Only about, what's that? Not even half of them have been used yet.
Right. Like this current market is just, it's so much smarter, and everyone knows the tricks and the pricing strategies and how the previous markets have run, and especially in the Artifact world. where the unminted vials just carry this big premium. So there's really no benefit to minting on the gun unless you get like a really low rarity. I'm very curious if the low rarity shoes, like the low serial shoes, will matter. Selfishly, I've got the 13 serial crypto kicks, so I'm hoping that the serials do matter. But I think that's what's driving this. We've only seen 7,300 or so have been burned so far. So 12,700 monolith ones are still out there. I think certainly a good portion of folks, are holding it. They're expecting that premium to continue to build. I think over the weekend monolith one was holding like a 1 to 2 ETH premium over the shoes plus vial plus monolith 2, and it's because of the rare lotto that you get with the box. So the Murakamis, I don't know if you saw this, the Murakami skin vial sold for like 72 ETH yesterday. So I mean that's big rare lotto upside.
Yeah.
So certainly that's baked into the price now. But I think people are going to get antsy, especially this week ahead of the big Yuga Land sale, to see if they've got a Murakami in the box. I've got one of these still that I haven't burned, and I think there's a good chance I burn it ahead of the weekend.
Yeah. So that's actually going to be a good transition for us into Yuga, because they announced on Saturday, which we somewhat were expecting, that there was going to be some sort of announcement on the 23rd, the 1-year birthday of just Bored Ape Yacht Club in general. And they came out with this Otherside meta, a new Twitter account. The Twitter account has been out since February, but I think in my original thought is this a fake account, scam account? There's so many of those these days. But then Yuga Labs went in and retweeted it, confirmed that it was real. Kind of interesting that they were created before this video. But Discord opened. There's 60,000 followers already on the Twitter, 140,000 in the Discord. So what's your thoughts on this Otherside meta? They're going to, on Saturday, the 30th at noon Eastern, they're going to be a drop. We don't know too many details on it yet, but what's your takeaway from Otherside meta?
There's so much to unpack on this one as well. So, we talked about Moonbirds being the most hyped drop of 2022. I mean, if there's anything else that could match or potentially exceed the hype that Moonbirds had, it's Otherside. So now all eyes are shifting to this. This is a huge event. I think part of the reason why we haven't seen a whole lot of market reaction, the market's just kind of trading as it was, is because we don't know the details yet. And I think the details of how the minting mechanics are going to work for this, if it's going to be an ape, if it's going to be an ETH, or a combination of those two, are just so important that we're kind of in a holding pattern, I think, until we get that information. And from the people I'm talking to, expecting those details to come as soon as today. I don't think it's going to come out, on Friday night. I think they're going to give folks some time to prepare.
Yeah. They have to, I think, as well, market-wise.
One of the biggest impacts is going to be the ApeCoin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this was something I had sent you a link, but I didn't realize you already had it up here. But the way that the coin has been trading has been very interesting. It'll pump, and then it'll come back, and then it pumps again. And there are people that, probably been able to swing trade this if they obviously were timing it correctly. But the way it's sort of been going is you can basically wait for those red lines to come up, and then after an hour or so, that's when you add some ape, and then it goes back up. And so that's not necessarily the most TA analysis, but it has been sort of trading between this $16 and $18 since that announcement. And people still don't know if it's going to be all an ape, partially an ape, and the uncertainty is there. But I think what this has shown, because the big green bars there are from when they originally had the that rumor that said it was going to be 600 ape that you needed. So what's your thoughts on if you expect this to be an ape, and then sort of the pros and cons of that?
I do expect it to be an ape. So like this current NFT market and Twitterverse is so speculative, and we all spend so much time coming up with different theories, conspiracy theories, speculation. We know we all did it with the Beanz and what's in the box, and then the simple answer was they were Beanz. It's the Occam's razor principle. The most likely scenario, the most likely outcome is the right one. So to me, the most likely outcome is the sale is done in ApeCoin. They have been telling us that in all of their fairly cryptic tweets for weeks now. So I expect that to be the case. Now, with the actual price, the ape to ETH ratio is at an all-time high because ETH has been dropping a little bit. It kind of bounced back this morning, but when I checked this morning, it was like 160 ape is all you got for one ETH. Yeah. For those who've been following this coin or doing any trading, it was in the high 200s just a week ago, right? So at this current level, 600 ape is like 3.5 ETH. If they sell 70,000 plots at 3.5 ETH, that's 240,000 ETH raised in a primary sale and sucked out of the ecosystem. To put that in perspective, Moonbirds was a 20K primary sale. Just 8,000 NFTs sold at 2.5. Is there enough demand to maybe sell that out at 3.5 ETH? I don't know. I mean, that's literally 9x the size of the Moonbirds mint. Yeah. So I struggle to see it unless there's just either tremendous whale money, tremendous outside money coming in, or a combination of those two factors. And then if everyone spends all their ape on the primary sale, what's going to happen to secondary? So I'm concerned. My guard is up if it comes out that high, and I don't know if it's even a good trade.
Yeah. 3.5. And the rumor did say it was supposed to be a Dutch auction, and if what you're saying is true, and there's not enough demand at 600, it'll end up going down lower. My thought is if it's only an ape, 200 ape probably. That's trading a little over 1 ETH. They originally were looking around 1 ETH. 1 ETH makes sense to me. Over 3 ETH doesn't make too much sense to me. I would heavily debate on even getting one because I just think a lot of people are going to want more than one. I don't think you just want one piece of this land, and that's where I think they should want to make it more affordable. There's probably enough demand to have 100,000 plots sell, depending on what the price is, though. Like, as you said, 3.5 Ethereum is going to take a lot of people out of the potential ecosystem that they're trying to expand by using the land. And the cheapest way in right now, outside of buying an ApeCoin, is over 10 ETH. So I think between that and then if these codas are going to be separate NFTs that are tradable, I would think codas are going to have their own floor and their own price. So as far as liquidity goes, it will suck a lot of that out. So I think if they initially price it a little lower, it's probably better for everyone. But my other thought was if I was on the Yuga Labs team, I would think you should have it in ETH and Ape with people that are BAYC, MOIC holders, or even just if someone dropped the Ape coin or something like that, like people could spend an Ape at a discount. So then still having people buy with Ape, but not necessarily limiting those that don't already have Ape. Because the second they make this announcement, there is going to be crazy trading on, say, Uniswap, swapping into ApeCoin, whether it's people that are buying to get in or if the price goes up over $20, people trying to sell. And it's going to really create a big gas spike that I don't think is going to be necessarily very fair for people that don't already have ApeCoin. And so that's why I don't necessarily agree with they should have it only in ApeCoin, because I think just the way that's driving people to that specific coin could hurt the non-whales in the system.
That's fair, but in that scenario, then ApeCoin tanks. So anyone who bought it before, their investment is going to go down significantly, and then it just raises the question: well, what is ApeCoin for? So I mean, so that is absolutely a scenario. So I definitely don't want to downplay it. I don't know the odds, but it's definitely a potential outcome that we see here, and it's a huge risk to anyone who's been building an ape position, on the speculation that it will be required for the mint. So certainly something to consider and kind of play out how the different scenarios could go. On your point around 200 ETH, I love it at 200 ETH. If this meant, sorry, 200 ETH.
200
yes.
ETH?
1
Whoa,
ETH, 200 ETH. If this auction can come down to 200 ETH levels or around that point, I love it. I think it's a big play. And then because we've got the Coda raffle, and I've been kind of surveying the market a little bit to see where people think Codas will trade. And the most common sentiment that I'm seeing, at least among the BAYC, the Bored Ape community, is above dogs. Dogs are holding a 12 to 14 floor right now. So that's big expectations around this new PFP character that we think is going to be integral to the Otherside and in the Yugaverse. And that it's going to be a big requirement. There's also a big unknown now. Like, are we getting 5,000 Codas or 10,000? This is all based on the leaked deck. You can kind of interpret it either way. Are they going to split the Codas across this first land sale and the second, or all the Codas going to come out now? I think I'm leaning in the camp that they're going to push them all out now, and we're going to see 10,000 Codas here in this mint, which means everyone will have a 10% shot. Which, if you think you've got 10% at minting a 15 ETH PFP, that just adds 1.5 to the price, right? So now, if you think the land is worth 1 and you got that lotto, does that mean it's going to sell out at 2.5? I mean, that might be the fair market price, but then that means 90% of folks are going to be down after the mint. So it's tricky. It's so much speculation. And I think it's really hard right now to gain a specific position in how you're going to play this without a little bit more detail.
Yeah, because I think sort of what you're saying as well, and the reason why the Kennel Dogs did pump this way is because people now, the rumor is going around that they're going to be able to find Codas, and then we don't really know much about Codas. Maybe it starts at 5,000 supply and the dogs find it up to 10,000, or it starts at 10,000, they find it up to 50,000. We still don't know many details on it. So, people are just sort of throwing out numbers, I think, just to guess, and people are just bullish on stuff to be bullish at times, because we don't know what Codas are even going to do, really. How much of a utility they have compared to the mutant apes even. So for people to put really a number on it is difficult. Obviously, Bored Apes hit a high this weekend as well. Every piece of the Bored Ape ecosystem hit an all-time high this weekend. The apes hit 150, the mutants hit 40, the kennel dogs. Have the kennel dogs been higher than 12 before?
I don't think so.
I don't know if before the mutants it was anything like that. But yeah, and ApeCoin getting to 18. So everything in the ecosystem is up. Everyone is, you could argue, at an all-time high. That beanie right there, is that the old beanie?
I don't think so. I think his eyes
familiar.
open.
It looks very similar to the one that I had, except I know that the eyes are closed in this, so I know it's not that one. But it is interesting looking at the floor here because it doesn't look like a normal floor. There's only one of the crazy eyes. There's the second one that's a little higher up. It's usually just all crazy eyes or the service guy down there on the bottom left. So yeah, it seems like people are trying to hold. There's less than 1,000 that are even up for sale. And then, well, that was another thing that came out today from Gem. OpenSea is going to be acquiring Gem, so that'll be interesting to see how they implement on here, and whether that's a good or bad thing. But that's separate. So, what's your thoughts now? I was expecting news by tomorrow, probably, maybe like Tuesday. I figured, like you said, like you have to give it a couple days of people to prepare. Like it's going to be at noon, but is that going to just be the Bored Apes and Mutants that can mint at noon? Is it
Right.
going to be 24 hours for them? So, what kind of details are you looking for before you sort of make any plays here?
Yeah, and before we get there, just real quick, I got to shout out to the Bored Ape Yacht Club owners. I mean, 147 ETH floor. Like, this is just absurd. Congrats. I think a lot of a big event that happened that wasn't that widely talked about was the Ape DAO liquidating their whole position. So the Ape DAO had like 80 to 100
I think it was 80.
Bored Apes. They
yeah.
had mutants too. They went about it really thoughtfully. They did it slowly. They sold them all for pretty much fair market price. There wasn't really any dumping, but it definitely clearly kept the market down a bit because of the continued sell pressure. Well, that sell pressure is gone now. And we see it's 7% listed. The book is thin. These things are at 147. I don't have a price target for these, but I'm not fading any upwards movement on the Bored Ape Yacht Club collection. Mutants are at 41. They were 16th in December. So just incredible performance. But back to the Yuga sale here, and what details to expect. So the most important things are the currency, and then the mechanics of the mint. Is it going to be a Dutch auction? What's it going to start at? What's the max supply, per wallet? So we saw the rumor where it was going to be 45 max. And, in some ways that's believable because of the supply on this thing. If you assume it's 30,000 free mints or airdrops to the Bored Ape Yacht Club and Mutant Ape Yacht Club owners, that leaves 70K for everyone else. 45 per doesn't seem that crazy. They're going to need that kind of buy pressure to churn through 70,000, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of parts to that though, where there are going to be those whales trying to go in and buy 20, 50, 100 of them. A lot of those whales though already are going to be airdropped. Like someone like Dingling is going to already get airdropped like 200 of these. So does Dingling have to go in and buy 100 of them on secondary? Probably not, but someone like Pranksy probably will. So there's still going to be people outside that are going to want to get in and buy a bunch of these. But I agree with you. Like just because there's 60,000 people that already follow that account, 140,000 in the Discord doesn't mean those are all real counts either.
Right.
But I think there are enough people out there that are trying to just get one or two that, depending, as we mentioned earlier, on the price, I could see this quickly selling out at that 200 ape price.
Yeah, I mean, a good measuring stick is the recent Moonbirds raffle, right? We had 42,000 qualified entrants, and to qualify, you had to have 2.5 ETH in your wallet. So I think that's a good barometer of how many accounts, are at least positioned to make a 2.5 ETH buy on this sale. I think the recent price action on the Bored Apes and everything else is really beneficial to Yuga ahead of the sale. Almost everyone is just priced out of this ecosystem right now. So if you want to enter, if you want to be a part of what is the biggest brand, the alpha dog in NFTs, which is Yuga Labs, here's your shot. This is your cheapest entry. So that's a big narrative. I think a lot of people are going to act on that. So that's certainly a big factor in their favor right now.
Yeah. So this is something we're obviously going to keep following along the story. So check out Lucky Trader NFT News. Lucky NFT News is the Twitter handle that will be posting all these updates, and on luckytrader.com. as they come up, because this is arguably the biggest news event of NFTs so far. And it's been expected for months. And as we mentioned, like the Bored Ape ecosystem is at all-time highs right now. So there's going to be tons of eyes on this. And I think basically the big thing that everyone's looking for this week, there's going to be a lot of people holding on to liquidity. So let's get into this coming week now a little bit. Beanz still haven't revealed.
Mhm.
Do you think they're going to reveal? And if so, is that going to be bad timing for them now with the liquidity? A lot of people holding on to liquidity for apes. There's also the V friends that are going to be revealing as well. So do you think people are going to lose that sort of interest in the Beanz in the short term? And do you expect them to reveal in the next coming days?
I don't. I think my gut is this is going to continue to be pushed out. But I think the alternative is if they're going to reveal this week, it needs to be like Tuesday or Wednesday. Give it a solid 2 to 3 trading days ahead of the next massive liquidity event. I mean, the risk to Beanz to every project is, what happens if Yuga raises 70,000 to 200,000 ETH on Saturday?
Yeah.
Is everyone going to be broke? I mean, clearly there's a lot of money in the ecosystem right now. We just had a huge influx from the Moonbirds buyers. The market is in bull. We're doing 136 million today on OpenSea, probably 150 million or so across all the marketplaces per day. So the money is here right now. Kind of talking through that, it feels like the right time for Beanz to reveal is this week and soon. They gave us the hint last week, right? They gave us the soft reveal. The market reacted similar to how it did for Monolith, but not quite as drastic. The floor plunged 1.5 ETH and then is close to back to where it is. It's at 5.2. I think it was like 5.7 before the soft reveal. So it's holding well. This is a good time to do it, but certainly it doesn't seem like they're in a hurry. But with that said, I mean, these were airdrops on March 30th. Yeah. So this Saturday is going to be a month. That's a long time for these pre-reveal windows. And, Azuki Twitter has been quiet. And it's because there hasn't been all that much to talk about. I mean, we've got the soft reveal, but it's everything else happening. There's just so much news in this hyper warp speed market right now. It's kind of hard to pay attention to anything that's not kind of in your face, making announcements, revealing all of that. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Personally, I hope these do reveal this week, but I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah, and I think they are in a somewhat unique position compared to other projects in this range of price. Say something like a Cyberbrokers doesn't have too much pressure to announce anything right now. But also if they were to announce something right now, it would probably get pushed aside and kind of being in the background. I think there's only a few projects that could announce something right now. It's Azuki, Doodles. People might be expecting something from Doodles. Clonex obviously did that with Monolith pretty successfully. And then it's like Moonbirds and Yuga. So to me, it's like everything in this mid range. The only one that I would even consider really investing into would be a Bean. But partially due to the fact that they haven't revealed yet. I think if they had revealed, I wouldn't be going there. But yeah, it's an interesting time in the market. As you mentioned, there's tons of liquidity going around, but I think there's going to be a lot of people that are waiting to see how much you need for land in the other side. So if it comes out and it's only about 1 ETH per plot versus 3 ETH per plot, I think is going to directly affect these 3 to 5 ETH projects. So are there any other projects in this range that you think could see any sort of liquidity or, I mean, that could transition into our future?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 big new drops coming this week, and I put them in my weekly preview post for Lucky Trader. So there's 2. The first is Imaginary Ones. And the primary reason that I highlighted them is they've got 520,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know that I've seen a social media following this big for a new NFT project yet since I've been tracking these. So it's fairly unprecedented. Certainly we've seen the super hyped, huge Twitter following projects kind of come out and fail. We've got several examples of that. The Hapes, Mechaverse, like Meta Tribes, all those. What's interesting about Imaginary Ones is their mint mechanic.
Yeah.
So the way they're doing it is they've got two phases. The first phase is the whitelist. I'm sure they've got infinite demand for their whitelist at this point. 4,200 supply at 0.2 ETH. 0.2, relatively cheap in this market. Like NFT Ethics isn't going to run a thread against 0.2. Most likely, who knows? I don't want to say anything's out of course for them. So about half the supply, half of the 88 are coming out in the whitelist. And then they're going to do a Dutch auction at 50% of the OpenSea floor price with a cap at 1.5. This is the first time I've seen that. It may not be the first project that's actually done this. I think maybe a few others have.
I think explicitly because Accutars that minted over the weekend, I think they decided at a 3.5 because the floor was above that, but I don't think anyone announced it beforehand.
Right. So essentially, this is almost guaranteeing a mint out, based on traditional market dynamics, because the number one thing the mass minters, the big traders who trade every project who mint is the secondary price above mint price. And if it is, then it's likely a good mint. This is pretty much guaranteeing that, as long as there's any type of demand for the first day of the private whitelist. And at 0.2 ETH in this current market with how liquid it is, I expect there will be. So I think there's going to be a lot of anticipation for this one. So I guess, shout out to the Imaginary Ones team for kind of using this dynamic. I think it's sharp. With that being said, the art to me feels like kind of a cross between Doodles and Invisible Friends. We showed their Twitter page. If I go here to their main page, it's animated 3D. They're walking avatars. It's got more of that fun, kind of traditional pastel colored type art style. So you get a glimpse of what that is. I mean, Invisible Friends was super anticipated, had a cult community, and we've seen how it's traded, right? It's essentially down 40 to 50% from its initial trading point in that first day.
But still holding above 5, which shows
right. I mean, it's still
more on the
definitely up
community
there.
side, I think. For
Yeah.
them.
So not a failure. It's holding 6.5 ETH, but we haven't really seen much upward trajectory or momentum on that one. Like anything, price is the most important factor in whether these are going to be good mints, good trades or not. I like these at a low entry. At a higher entry, I don't like them as much. I feel like their roadmap is fairly light. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it here. Let's see if I can get it. Or regardless, they've got some hiring plans for phase 1. I think they hint at potential airdrops, and then they hint at a metaverse, kind of a pretty standard roadmap. So it doesn't seem like a whole lot of innovation happening. But it's a huge following, so this is definitely one to pay attention to. Its whitelist is Tuesday night, and then the public sale is Wednesday night. So it always gets confusing with the GMT time zones.
Yeah.
So make sure to do the conversions. And then the other one is Black Paris. I think that's the way to pronounce this. So this is more of your fashion lifestyle brand kind of entering the NFT space. It's basically a 10,000 supply. It's $99.99. This one is 0.2 ETH. Anyone can register for the mint. So it appears to me that they're doing an open raffle. So as long as you have 0.2 ETH in your wallet, you can go ahead and register. It's going to direct you to their Discord. And then you'll have a shot to mint this one. What's a little bit different about these is they are much more positioning this as kind of a membership, kind of a fashion membership club is the take I get on this one. And it's a pretty big part their roadmap, which includes in real life events, as well as discounts on physical products, fashion collabs, and as well as regular airdrops. They talk about some access to entrepreneurs, founders, and artists, as well as potential land acquisition in the future. So this one seems, definitely a much more achievable roadmap. If you're into the fashion space, want to get into that community, I definitely get the niche here. It's another low entry with a big following. They've got about 220,000 on Twitter. So at 0.2 ETH, I think there's going to be big demand for this one as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I was thinking that just because of the timing, the mint price on this one could hurt it. I think if this was a 0.1, it'd be better for them because just the issue with the 0.2 ETH for me on the mint price is, say, people just want to hold money for Yuga, they're not going to mint this, or when they mint this and it is sitting at 0.25 or something, then they just dump it to get back money for Yuga. It has more downside risk in that sense in the short term. But yeah, as you said, like the roadmap here seems more thought out and it's a built out project. The imaginary ones I've always thought were just kind of piggybacking off of Invisible Friends and trying to do the same thing. It seems like they were so long ago though that maybe they have been building over this time, and I should be looking at them a little more than if they minted out a couple weeks after Invisible Friends. So yeah, these two are definitely the top two on the week, I would say. Outside of things revealing the V Friends and then this Whiskers one that was happening today as well. Not as sure what's going to happen with that one, but it's a lower cost. So
did you
yeah,
catch the pre-mint details, Lou? Did we get an announcement from pre-mint, or do we know?
Yeah, so the big announcement they had was if you hold a pre-mint pass, you're going to be able to claim a ledger, pre-mint branded ledger. So they have a partnership with Ledger to get, if you hold a pass, you're going to be able to get a free Nano S Plus, I think it was. And you'll just have to pay shipping, but that'll be for pass holders. He's still debating on how to roll that out. What he basically said was each ID is going to be able to claim its own pass. So if you sell between whenever time frame is the claiming period, and you've sold one that didn't already claim it, you could then claim it. But that's not going to actually happen until May. They're still working out some of the kinks there, but that was the big piece of info. He's talking about a few different things. They're going to be having these town halls every other week. They're not going to be creating a Discord, at least not in the short term. He thinks he's pretty comfortable with how the Twitter communication has been and doesn't feel the need for Discord and having to manage one. And that's just takes away from the building side. So they got some building. They're adding another guy to the team for security to help with the website. So some good stuff in there. Nothing like super crazy. I think the ledger was the biggest one. But that had pumped into the weekend over 3 ETH. I think it's now under 3 ETH. But yeah, membership passes seems like the new hot thing. The Conium pass was up as well. So do you think everyone's going to start creating a membership alpha pass off of this basically from Proof?
It's so funny and also disappointing at the same time for me personally. So we did a feature on pass season, a week and a half ago. We covered pre-mint and Conium. I think pre-mint was at 1.35. Conium was at like 0.6 or something. Pre-mint has since run over 3. Conium got up to like 1.5, 1.8 or something over the weekend. I did not take that opportunity to buy into those. And certainly I regret that now, but we're definitely seeing this kind of pass season. And it makes sense to me because when you think about all of all these PFP products trying to drive utility, these are actual products that do offer utility. I mean, Conian has a tech product that has nice data behind it and is also running these raffles. And then Premint is providing utility via access to additional mints, whitelist opportunities, now giving everyone ledgers. So they are actually giving utility. And I think for a lot of these PFPs, again, like everyone realizes it's not about the artwork, right? It's about the community. It's about the product team, whatever utility you can get out of it. Some of these PFPs could just be blank pages, and they would trade just okay. And essentially, that's what these passes are. It's just a picture of a card or something. Certainly, Proof Collective helped kind of set all of this off. Nano Pass has done really well in this sector as well, and they're going to launch Nano Pass 2 here in the near future. So that's going to be a big one to watch in a couple of weeks. So I don't think pass season's over. I think it's going to continue here through this cycle.
And I've talked about this before, where I think membership passes makes a lot of sense to people. We also have like the links now. Membership passes themselves are like the best use case, I feel like, for NFTs, more of a good use case than PFPs in a lot of ways. PFPs have sort of become membership into a community, is like the way that they word it. So I'm somewhat of a Premint maxi. I just think that they are by and far the leader in that space right now in getting these raffles together. They just did it in a whim for VFriends. Okay, we'll come up with 10,000 spots for you in turnaround in 24 hours. So I just think a lot of projects and successful projects are going to look towards them. And Mulligan's, he's listening to the community a lot. One thing that came up as well in that town hall earlier was a lot of these projects, they would come out and say, oh, we have 25 spots. But he's like, I have 8,000 holders of the passes now. Like 25 spots is nothing. So many people, if they come out of it not winning any of these raffles, then why are they going to want the pass? So he's really pushing to try to get 500 spots on a lot of these. So it's definitely, I'm bullish on the team building and just in general being able to listen to the community, because people want these memberships and want to feel part of something, and the ability to take 10 steps of grinding a Discord out of the way.
No, I'm with you. I think you're spot on. I do think there gets to a point where Premint or these other passes gets too high, they could start to be flooded. So, when you think about Premint as kind of an access to additional mints, if it gets too expensive and it's just like, oh, the rich can have like a pay-to-play mechanism to get all the mints, I think that could create a bad narrative. But we're not there yet. And, as long as he can kind of control the narrative and the other utility he offers, I think they'll be just fine. I think one big thing to focus on, and you touched on this earlier, Lube, I think we need to go a little bit deeper, is this OpenSea news from this morning. So they announced their acquisition of gem.xyz. Essentially, they're going to leave Gem as it is. You can continue to go to Gem's website, use their functionality. A lot of people have been considering them as one of the best aggregators. You can buy NFTs off X2Y2, Looks Rare, or OpenSea from their site. You can do sweeping, or you can buy just one at a time. I personally follow the Moonbirds sales action very closely, so I see firsthand how buys are taking place. And anecdotally to me, it feels like 10% or so are coming through Gem. So they're getting real market share. But this announcement was instantly flooded and has a pretty negative reaction. In general, the NFT community doesn't like OpenSea. They don't like their customer service. They feel like they're Web 2, just VC backed. All they care about is profits, so on and so forth. And also this means likely no Gem token. And a lot of people were, using Gem or farming Gem to try to get token. Well, guess what? The Genie team, a direct Gem competitor, one of the founders tweeted out $Genie with a hint at a Genie token. So for those of you who use these aggregators, like to perform sweeps, I'd say maybe use Genie a little bit more now, if getting a potential airdrop is something you're interested in.
Yeah. And I think some people were looking at Gem as potentially an OpenSea killer. And I think the other thing with this, OpenSea sort of is stepping in and saying we can buy out these other potential competitors to us, and it'll be interesting to see what if sort of looks where it goes and buys out Genie or something like that down the road. I could see something like that happening. When I was looking at the data earlier, Gem is about 8 times more traffic than Genie currently.
Wow.
It's around 4,000 transactions on Gem versus 500 for Genie, and basically Genie's been around longer, but once and was doing well, and once Gem came out, they kind of flip flopped, and yeah, Genie has been much lower performer over the last couple months here. So it'll be interesting to see if people switch or they're just so used to using Gem. There have been a lot of deals if you do use Gem. As you mentioned, X2Y2 is on there. A lot of people don't really go to that site itself, but you go on Gem and you see the 3 cheapest items are on X2Y2 because of the lack of fees on there in April. It's a way that people have been able to save some money as well buying into these things, because usually OpenSea has the higher prices. And then looks where they had their giving out rewards for listing. A lot of looks rare items were higher, like well above floor, because people don't want to actually sell it, but they want to. You saw that with Premint was a big one, where the floor was all on XTY2 and OpenSea, and then but there was way more listings on looks rare. They were just all like 1 ETH higher. So do you think that there's going to be a lot of push back towards Genie, or enough people are just so used to using Gem that if it's someone wanting to use an aggregator, they're not really going to change just because OpenSea is buying it?
It's a good question. I think it depends on kind of the use case and what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get the absolute best price in a hot collection, then you're going to use Gem, and it's the right place to go. But if you're looking to sweep the floor of an older set that doesn't have that much attention on it right now, I'm probably using Genie, because I imagine the prices are going to be pretty comparable. I'm not in a high, like, floor is rising environment. And I want the shot at those tokens. So I definitely think they'll get some market share back. Lou, I got to pull this dashboard up. You mentioned lowest performer, and it just low performer, and it popped into my head. This is the dashboard for Coinbase NFT, guys. I know to our listeners who are just listening to this and can't see the dashboard, there's a new Dune Analytics that compares OpenSea versus LooksRare versus Coinbase since April 20th, when Coinbase launched. OpenSea has done $1 billion in revenue. Since actually that number seems a little high. Maybe that's right.
Yeah, it's about 5 days. Yeah,
LooksRare has done like $600 billion, but Coinbase has done $167,000 on 500 transactions and 263 users. Not great. Like, we know this was a beta launch, and it was going to be a limited pool, but that's not much. I mean, one Mutant Ape Yacht Club transaction is $120,000. So they've done essentially that. So I'm curious how they're going to try to get more users and volume going in.
Yeah. And sort of to your point, like the ratio there between OpenSea and Coinbase, Coinbase would have to be doing like 10x. Coinbase should be doing around 1 million if you want to compare it to, they have less users. They have less users. I would assume that they have more than 263 people that got the beta access. So, I mean, personally, I got beta access and haven't used it, haven't made a transaction on there. I think just the fact that they perhaps limited it too much, at least to start. But yeah, people aren't using it yet. Looks rare is probably, if you zoom this out, say a month previous, looks rare has probably been pushed a lot more because of that reward system that they announced last week. I know personally I've been using looks rare way more often. But it still shows OpenSea's king.
It does. And we've got an interesting comment here from Jason Bales, and definitely agree, saying that Coinbase's user base is people who don't currently have NFTs, and those who already do aren't likely to use it. Definitely spot on. So what are the potential catalyst events to get new users trading on Coinbase? We haven't talked about this, and to make this whole show go full circle, what if Yuga Land launches on Coinbase and Coinbase alone? Would be an absolutely smash launch event for Coinbase. It potentially introduces new buyers to help out with this huge supply. It's possible. And also today, after they had their Instagram hacked and a few folks lost mutants or apes here, Garga hinted at how they're working with a company for some kind of a custodial service. You know what type of a company does custodial service? It's Coinbase.
Yeah.
So could this be it? It's a higher than 0% shot to me.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out.
Because there has been talks about Yuga doing their own marketplace, similar to how Punks have one, and they thought that was maybe part of that acquisition. And to Jason's point, like that's the long term for Coinbase. I don't think right now too many of those users don't own NFTs. I would guess more of the current user base have been in NFTs before, but the whole idea of Coinbase is to bring in more people who have, less than one Ethereum on Coinbase already and haven't bought into NFTs and don't know what a MetaMask wallet is. So I'm not taking too much out of this chart yet. I think say like a month or two down the road, if it's still crazy wild and no one's using Coinbase NFT. I mean, we saw it with LooksRare when that came out. People used it right away, and then it sort of fell behind. So OpenSea's, I'm not going to say that it's too big to fail or anything, but right now I think it's going to take a lot to push them out a little bit. The gem buy could have been defensive in a way for them. Because if someone like LooksRare went in and bought gem, that could have been very different. So something good to monitor, I think, long term. But yeah, as of now, it's not even just anecdotal. You can see with the numbers, people just aren't really using Coinbase NFT yet.
It's true, but I'm with you. It's early, so we'll monitor it. I'm very curious where Yuga Land is going to launch, and I don't think it's just going to be traditional, mint from this website, and then we all trade on OpenSea. I think there's going to be something else in the mix here. And the wild card for Ape is if it happens in Yuga's own marketplace, where not only is the primary sale done in Ape, but also the secondary. What if that's the primary place to trade these on secondary and you need Ape? That means Ape's not just necessarily going to dump after the land sale. So there's a lot of different scenarios out there, ways this could play out. We will be covering all of it and definitely sharing our thoughts and info as we hear more.
Yeah, and there's probably no market out there yet, but I mean, no matter where they do it, no matter what site that is, it's probably going to crash at some point, just off of traffic and demand itself. That's why I think that there's going to be different times that they drop different pieces of it. I would expect. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll find out some news in the next couple days. And as mentioned before, follow the Twitter accounts you see below right here, and you'll be able to get all those up to date with us. We are providing basically project updates as they flow in now, and our website, if you haven't checked it out recently, has a nice flow of those recent updates. So definitely check it out at luckytrader.com, and we'll be back here on Thursday to talk. Hopefully by then we'll have enough info. I would expect most of Thursday's show will be about Yuga. Hopefully we'll have enough info to share with you. And if today is any sort of predictor of the future, there's just so much going on in NFTs right now, as you mentioned before. And these next 2 days in between, there could be a lot more that we have to talk about. So definitely come back on Thursday with me and Tyler, and have a good week, everybody.